The first carp is always important, and just before midnight there was action in Mark and Miles' swim.
Yeah, well, we decided to get an early night basically, because we were both tired, obviously, if it travelled away. It was, I decided to put one on the tiger knot really last night, so I positioned it just off the bottom of the slope. I put one on the slope, one on the bottom of the slope.
24:10.
That's not bad, then.
Happy days.
Been in bed about 10 minutes already. It wasn't really a scream, it just a did it. Well, I thought to start with probably small fish. Then realised obviously it's quite tight when a small fish struck into it. It was, I thought it was a bit smaller to start with, and then obviously Miles done the proud job on netting it for us.
They got a good sized nails on them, haven't
they? Yeah.
There you go, right in the bottom, right in the middle of the bottom lip, and I think that's the only hook hole there. What a great looking fish, great condition. It's interesting to see how big that mouth is,
yeah.
and choosing the kind of rigs and hooks and baits that we're going to use from now on, for sure.
Nice fish.
Yeah.
Looking good. I'm happy now, mate.
Done.
You get that first one.
That's all you need.
Yeah, water is still pretty cold, isn't it?
Yeah.
Awesome fish. That's the one I wanted, mate. Just makes you feel happy you get the first one off out of the way, doesn't it? So, looks good.
First light appeared over the top of the trees, but unfortunately with it came only one more carp, to Rob Marsh and Lee Merritt. Most pairs had expected to catch, either overnight or early in the morning.
Well, when we got here it did actually look quite good, and even though we didn't see any fish in the area, I didn't want to sort of scare any off, you know, by constant markering. So I just had a few casts with a marker. I was quite fortunate that I found a nice plateau, sort of second or third cast. Which was sort of 6-7 foot, surrounded by 10s. I didn't sort of continually cast to find out exactly how big it was. You know, something I quite often do is a couple of casts, get an idea of the depth and go with that, as opposed to, you know, thrashing the hell out of it. But looks like a bit of a challenge, doesn't it? It's not an easy water anyway, is it?
Challenge this time of year.
Yeah, considering the water temperature's so cold.
No, there's a few good spots. I think the sort of predominant areas that I like were the ones that controlled the most water, really. Sort of point swims and sort of swims that sort of didn't have sort of other swims close to them, really.
I mean, there was a lot of good-looking areas, and this time of year, you know, there's obviously going to be main groups of fish held up, aren't there? So it's just a case of picking an area and hoping they were there, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, but we just have to see what happens there.
I think sometimes it is better off going with your own ideas in some cases, isn't it? I mean, I tend to find myself fishing in the same sort of style whenever I come to these French venues that have got, you know, or should have got a high stock of fish, you know.
I just think because it controls so much water as much as anything else, you know.
I suppose the other thing I know I don't know, I'm sure you did as well, I mean, there's the aerial photograph on the actual website, isn't there? But I actually went onto Google and sort of, you got the measuring tool on there, haven't you? So you're sort of measuring, right, how far is that island from the bank or from that point? And, you know, it just gives you an idea of how big the actual lake is, and also the winds, you know, where the sun's going to be, and it you know, it just gives you something to go on, doesn't it, before you actually get there.
Well, Hutch, bit of deja vu, this, isn't it? Me presenting you with a big fish hat.
Sounds good. Hopefully keep it for a bit.
Yeah, we'll have to lose that one, I'm afraid.
How's my hair looking, all right?
Yeah, looks perfect.
How's that, eh? Best looking bloke on the lake with that as well, eh?
I like it because it's a little different to a lot of the lakes that trips are run to in France. You know, many of them are quite intensive, they're heavily managed, all the swims are sort of, they're small, they're compact, but they're all sort of perfectly done. Here it's a lot more natural, and for me it makes it a nicer place to fish. You know, it doesn't feel like, you know, someone's literally just moved out of your swim and you're moving in again. It's what I call a proper lake, but it sort of suits what I like about fishing lakes. We've also got the sun shining on this north bank, and I think at this time of year that can be an edge. Sort of warms up the water a little bit. We've also got quite a lot of depth of water Here we've got everything from 13 foot to about 7 foot, so we've got some variances in depth, and so we can try rods on those different spots, and I think that probably drew us to here as well.
But this looks like to me there's a lot of pegs that you can fish at range, you know, like the spawn opposite we thought about, because you could fish out at long range and still fish at short range but without disturbing the rods. So these were the 2 pegs we thought we could do it on.
Try and walk round in the evening, try and walk round in the morning. It's not always possible, but try and spend as much time walking around. Something will show itself, and hopefully that will help you make a decision.
Just along from Mark and Miles, Rob and Lee had seen very little so far in the way of carp, but were confident in their choice of swim and their approach.
We fancied this swim, to be honest. This was our number one choice.
Yeah, this had open water, islands. After doing a bit of research, we found out the margins were good as well. So in front of us we've got a plateau, it's just hoping for a bit of sun, and that's the reason this was our first choice, really. Try and look and see what the weather's going to do. Wind directions, temperatures, air pressure.
Speak to many people, as you know, who's maybe fished the lake before, try and get as much information on the internet.
Yeah.
Just try and gain as much knowledge as we could. Couldn't get a great deal about this place. Didn't really know that many people that had fished it. And then literally once you get here, sort of really going on your watercraft really and trying to sort of think where the fish might be and what actually sort of looks out and sort of grabs you really.
3 or 4 walks around, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, just to look for fish, any disturbance in the water.
It was really sort of, like I say, high up in our list of sort of swims we wanted to fish.
Yeah.
And areas. This end of the lake appealed to us more than the other end.
First light this morning, we had the first fish, lightly baited area, just off an island.
It was pretty fish as well, so it was good.
Throwing loads of bait in and heavily baiting the first day was an option, but we haven't taken that option. We've tried to find our marks in case they didn't produce over the next 24, 48 hours. I particularly have got one bait just on boilies, nothing else, just pure boilies. The next rod is on mixed particle, hemp, chopped boilies. Again, not a lot, just a little bucket full at a time, maybe a kilo. And the near rod has got particle, chopped boilies and maggots. And again, not a lot, just a few spods. And every time, if we do catch and produce a fish off them spots, we would just top that up each time, whether it's day or night, just top it up.
There's a couple of obvious points. I mean, we've got a point of an island in front of us, which is pretty certain bet to have a bait on there.
Same with the margin, to do a similar thing. So I've got one in the margins down there. We found a nice couple of spots with the prodding stick out there, gravel, and then down to a softer silt, and just fishing off the edge of that in 10-foot water.
Basically, any fish moving from left to right or right to left, we should basically have it covered.
Yeah, we should have intercepted them whichever way they come through.
Just across on the point, Lee and Gary had made great use of the amount of water available to them, exploring right across their swim and fanning their rods out accordingly. Like everyone, they'd never been here before and took stock of the Three Eels challenge.
I think it's actually quite a nice looking lake. You know, it's quite. I mean, obviously this time of year the lakes look a little bit, you know, with the trees don't come out in leaf yet or anything, so it looks a little bit sort of barren. But yeah, I'm obviously impressed with the size of the lake and you know, the swims.
The research I'd done told me that it was very, very clear and weedy. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I was going to work on particle, which generally works in clear waters, but I brought bait, so we might swap over the baits later on.
My top choice of swim was actually swim 3. It just looked, I don't know, it just looked right. I think this was possibly our fourth choice of swim. But I mean, the area we weren't too sure because it was quite a cold wind blowing, and you're never too sure this time of year whether the fish are going to be
on the back of the wind
or
in
the
front of it. Yeah,
and on the front of it. I mean, and as it happens, I mean we haven't caught anything yet, but you know, I think we're not far off.
The competition is the biggest fish, not the most. So even right up to the last half hour, you've got a chance. We're gambling on the back of the wind that the fish are here, and the other thing, Patrice was. The the owner of the lake, was out the draw before us, so he chose on the back of the wind. So I think that was a bit of good watercraft by Lee.
So I took it easy with the bait yesterday. I baited up using the boat, a small amount of particles around each and a few boilies. But then yesterday evening I had a little bit of action, which I think was from small fish, like roach and rudd and whatever. So I think when I bait up today, like this afternoon, I'm going to bait a lot heavier, you know, with hope of attracting a carp or two in.
What I've done, I've surveyed the lake out in front of me, and I've found the features, and what I've done, I've put the H blocks, dropped the H blocks and the markers at the back, at the sides and the front of the feature. So there was about 3 or 4 features out there of note. Then returned to the bank, and with my marker float, I'd cast and find each spot. I'd write down on a piece of paper where those H blocks were. On the horizon, take note of where each H block was, and then I'd write down how many winds it was to each H block. I'm concentrating on 2 main areas at the moment, but there's 5 or 6 others out there which I've written down. So if those don't produce anything, or if I see a fish move, then I can then pinpoint exactly those marks. So save me again going out in the boat and disturbing the swim.
Yeah, what I've actually done on one rod as well, I've decided, you know, when you can take into consideration that probably most people who come to this lake use a boat for the purpose of baiting up, so it's fairly tight baiting. What I've decided to do on one rod, which is the rod I'm fishing sort of like more over in that bay, about 60 yard out, I'm baiting it from the bank, like using boilies. So therefore it's a different situation to what the fish, baiting situation to what the fish are used to. You know, so you've got boilies scattered around a little bit as opposed to sort of in tight spots. And yeah, it might work. I mean, yesterday was the first day, and obviously, you know, you tend to, you're a little bit tired still because of the journey and everything else. And it all seemed a little bit of a rush on the first day. I mean, I certainly feel a lot more relaxed now. So today, I think I'm going to do the same. I'm going to fish the same spots, but just put a lot more bait in. You know, and you know, so I hope that something happens.
I would say that the bait we're using can be consumed by the roach, rudd, and tencher in here. So we're not throwing lots of carp food, if you like, that's going to stagnate out there. Attract the small fish, create some feeding frenzy down there, get that going, and then only introduce a lot more carp baits until the when the carp move in, hopefully. And if they don't, we'll move.
Yeah, move back to England.
In the far corner of the lake, Simon and Patrice had set up, looking to take advantage of being on the back of the wind. Of course, Patrice's knowledge of the lake also played a part, but Simon was still required to figure the swim out for himself.
As regards the interesting features, and particularly in different swims, I think looking at it, and also from what I understand about it, you've got features in every single swim. And with the presence of weed, you've also got fish holding areas. You've got shallows and deeps. It's predominantly clay and sand anyway, so there are clear patches you can find amongst the weed. There are certain areas that initially appealed, certainly given the conditions. There's a very, very cold wind blowing, so being behind the wind was a good option, definitely, particularly if we get some sunshine. There's a lot of possibilities for margin fishing, which is very interesting as well, and from what we know of the lake, a lot of the fish that come out are only literally, well, anything from the margin up to about 50, 60 yards.
In spring, the carps need warm water to start again, to move around, yeah. So that was my first choice. Yeah, because we can fish this right bank correctly, which is very interesting. On the bay, several depths. There's quite a few weed here, where the carps are anyway, where the food is.
Particularly, you scatter around the margins, there's quite a few little clear spots amongst the weed, and we've seen fish virtually straight off, haven't we? So, and because of that, I'm confident there's fish in the area, and, you know, equally confident that we, touch wood, we should catch.
We baited quite a lot on one place, quite close to us, so we don't disturb or push the fish away. We baited about 20 yards out, quite heavily in front of us. This baiting is gonna work, possibly of course, in 2 or 3 days, just to attract the fish slowly to us, yeah, and to keep them here.
There's no rod on that spot at the moment.
There's no rod on the spot,
Just left it alone.
Just left it alone for the moment, yeah. The rest is all spots, little bait, very little bait, some no bait as well for some 2 rods.
It's a little bit of particle. We're using predominantly hemp, a few mixed seeds in there, a few crushed boilies, but very small patches of bait just to see if we can just buy a bite to start with, see where we're getting the activity, see if you can get any liners. As a preference, I use, quite a oily hemp for the reason that, particularly in the wind, if you get any fish disturbance around there whatsoever, you'll get a bit of oil patch come up, and then you immediately know that you've got fish in the area. So.
The day wore on and still no carp were to be seen, but no one was panicking, yet. Mark and Miles had decided to rest their swim during the afternoon in preparation for what they'd hoped would be bite time later on, and decided to take the opportunity of a couple of hours spinning for some of the other species in the lake. 3 eels contain some major pike and some freshwater bass, so if you're a fisherman, this place is close on paradise. Unfortunately, the only fish putting in an appearance were tench and bream, but hopefully the carp were waiting in the wings, preparing themselves for a major feed. Carp anglers don't give up, well this lot certainly don't, and as the sun set on a cold but enchanting French evening, the anglers prepared themselves for what they hoped would be a busy night.